Alright, in this video I'm going to kind of show you how to use offset path in Illustrator to kind of get a little bit more refined, a little bit more consistent results with some of your work. Anyway, on the left hand side we've got kind of the spade, and on the spade you will kind of notice, let me grab a pencil or a paintbrush here, you'll notice that this is kind of following along pretty well, but then on this side it kind of seems like it should be a little bit more tapered, like that. In here we're a little bit closer here than we are here, right? And then the consistent spacing all the way around, it could probably be a little bit better, kind of in this negative space in here. So let me kind of show you how you can kind of work with that. And I'm going to recreate this one on the right hand side, which has a little bit better kind of consistent space in between here. The space right here actually matches that space that I just colored over here, and so forth. So that's kind of what I'm going to go for. So I'm going to come right here and I'm going to grab this oval, and I'm going to make the kind of the spade, the metal part of this spade. So I'm going to come in and I'm going to just grab an oval, and I'm going to put it about right here. And there we go, kind of like that. And then I'm going to hold down, grab V, or my selection tool, and I'm going to hold down Option and click and drag, and I'm going to kind of get this shape. Now if I want to see what I've got behind, maybe it's a drawing, a sketch, or something else, right? I could just do the outline for a minute and then kind of get that where I want it. And you'll notice now I've got this peak right up in here, kind of what I want with that shovel look. So I've got these guys here. And the other thing is I'm going to cut this off. So I'm going to grab my rectangle and I'm going to cut it off right there. So I've got all these shapes, and if I take all this, use Shift M, which is my shape builder, hold down Option or Alt, I can click and drag and get rid of that stuff. Get rid of that, get rid of this, which leaves us with this shape here, and I'm going to grab the gray and just move it over, and so I've got that kind of that spade looking thing right off the bat. Alright, next thing I want to do, and this is kind of where we get into offset path, I want to get, well first I'm going to get rid of the stroke. You'll notice I've got a fill and stroke here. I'm going to get rid of the stroke just so that I don't have to deal with it. Now we come in and I've just got this shape in here and we should be good. Oh, nope, I've got two shapes here. Let's delete one of those. Grab that, get rid of the stroke. There we go. I think I only have one now. Perfect. Alright, so now I kind of want one side of this. I want this to be kind of uniform, kind of brought in. So I'm going to grab this guy. I'm going to go to Object, I'm going to go down to Path, and I'm going to go to Offset Path. Alright? Now what offset path does is it takes my object and then moves it in or out based on the offset. So in this case I've kind of figured it out that if I hit preview here, you'll notice that with 0.15 I get about that distance that I want between all of my different shapes. Now 0.15 inches, put it on the outside. If I do a negative and then click down here in any other box, you'll notice that it goes on the inside, and that's kind of what I want to do to get that that wedge, that white wedge in there. So I've got the preview, and you can mess with this and kind of play around with that and see how it goes. Rounded is a little bit interesting. You'll notice I've got these nice corners right in here that aren't rounded, and that's kind of what I want in this one. If I do rounded, it sometimes goes in and it's not doing it for me here. Sometimes what it'll do, especially if I'm going out, let's go out, it'll actually round those corners instead of making them kind of the squared, very angular edges. So you kind of have to kind of watch out what you want. Is it rounded? Is it just milter, or kind of whatever? So kind of play around with those settings. Alright, so that's the first thing. So I'm going to grab this and I'm going to hit OK. Now, it's made a new shape on here. Like that. I'm just going to move it out of the way real fast and put it back in place. It's made that new shape, and I'm going to make this completely white. So now you notice that this edge right here is really what I was going for. That's all I really need. Now I'm going to come in and I'm going to grab this. I'm going to hold down Option or Alt and click and drag. So I've got this other shape here. I'm going to change the color just so that I can see it. I'm going to change the angle, maybe change the size, and then I'm going to bring it down over here. And I can kind of play around, and it leaves that left edge of my wedge kind of perfect, kind of following along that edge. And then I can kind of move this guy around, and I can kind of get this little wedge in here to look the way I want it. Now I'm going to grab these two, so the white and then this top gray, hold Shift M again, and then subtract this extra stuff, which leaves me just with this little white wedge, which is perfectly kind of distanced away from that edge, this bigger spade, if you will. Okay, next I'm going to grab a circle or an ellipse, and I'm going to come in and I'm going to put that ellipse right here. Now I've got to figure out how big I want it. I'm going to make it about this large here. I'm going to make it this color already because I know that's what I want. Now I want to make sure this is perfectly centered. So I'm going to grab this, hold Shift, grab that, and then once I've got both of these selected, I'm going to click on the object I don't want to move when I center it. So I'm going to click one more time on this background. You'll notice it gives me a nice kind of this thick stroke on there saying, hey, this is the active thing. Up here in my bar, or if I go to Window Align, I've got my Align tools, and I'm going to do the horizontal align center, and it's going to center that perfectly for me. Perfect. Okay, next thing. I need this white space kind of cut out of that spade. So I'm going to grab my circle. I'm going to go back up to Object, and I'm going to go to Path, Offset Path. Now, we already know that the 0.15 is kind of what we had before. I'm going to go positive instead of negative. It's going to increase that the exact same amount, and I'm going to hit OK. Now, I'm kind of left with this larger one. I've got a smaller one in there. I'm going to grab the larger one, and I'm going to hold Shift. I'm going to grab the spade. I'm going to hit Shift M, and I'm going to subtract that circle away from there, leaving this perfect kind of space between the spade and that circle. Next, I'm going to grab my rectangle tool right there. If I hit M, and I'm going to draw a rectangle that's going straight across. I'm going to grab that rectangle and the circle, Shift M again, subtract those two things. Oh, there we go. Subtract those two things, and that gives me my little circle there. Perfect. Okay, last thing, we want this little handle in here. So I'm going to come in, I'm going to grab my ellipse, and all we're doing here with this one is just, we have an ellipse in here. Now, you'll notice that mine, I actually don't like it that much. I'll show you why in a second. So what I did was I came about to here, and I made that handle. I could make it a little bit bigger if I wanted and things, but I kind of try to match it up there. Once I had that, I'm going to actually move that back. So I can right-click, arrange, send to back, or I can use those shortcuts right there that you see and kind of send it to the back, and then I can grab that circle again. Once again, I'm going to go Object, Path, Offset Path, and I'm going to hit Preview. I want positive because I want to come up, and I want to just be able to cut that edge off of that handle. I want Milter in there instead of rounded because the rounded is going to round those corners, which I don't want. So I'm going to go back to Milter. I'm going to hit OK. Once I've got that, I can go grab this shape and that shape. This shape and that shape. There we go. Hold Shift M, and I am going to cut off the top right there. That gives me that nice perfect spacing once again with that spade. Everything's aligned in there and so forth, and that's kind of what I've got going on. So once again, nice equal spacing in here, under here. Anytime that there is space between these objects, it's all equal, it's all the exact same, instead of kind of getting this closer part here and then further apart over here. It just kind of has that consistency that makes it look a little bit more refined. Anyway, I hope this has been helpful, kind of showing you how to use the offset path in Illustrator, and I'll talk to you later.